Before I was a grandfather, I was a forensic accountant for the IRS for 23 years. I know how to follow a paper trail. I know how to find what people think they've hidden. And I know exactly what it looks like when someone is lying to your face with a smile. My son Kevin is 41 years old. His wife, Sandra, is 38. They have a biological son together, Ryan, who is 9. 3 years ago, they adopted a little girl named Lily. She was 5 when she came to them. She had spent 2 years bouncing between foster homes, and when Kevin called me to say they were bringing her home, I drove 4 hours to meet her the same weekend. She was the quietest child I had ever seen. Not shy, exactly, more like she had learned to take up as little space as possible. She would sit at the dinner table and wait for everyone else to take food before she reached for anything. She would laugh at something funny and then immediately look around to see if laughing was allowed. It broke something in me every time. I retired to Savannah, Georgia after my wife passed. Kevin and Sandra live in Charlotte, North Carolina, about a 3.5-hour drive. Close enough that I saw them most holidays and a few weekends a year. Close enough that I thought I knew what was happening in that house. I was wrong. The phone call came on a Tuesday night in March, a little past 11. I was already in bed. I almost didn't pick up because I didn't recognize the number at first, and then I saw it was Kevin's home landline, which nobody ever uses, and something made my stomach drop before I even answered. It was Lily. She was whispering. So quietly, I had to press the phone hard against my ear and hold my breath to hear her. "Grandpa, I don't know where my medicine is. Lily has asthma. Not severe, but she needs her rescue inhaler nearby. Always. Sandra manages the medication. I had never thought to question that arrangement. Sweetheart," I said, sitting up, "where are you right now?" "In my room." "Where's your mum and dad?" A pause. Then, "They went on vacation." I thought I had misheard her. "They went on vacation." I thought I had misheard her. "They, what? When did they leave? Saturday?" "It was Tuesday." "Who's with you, honey?" Another pause. Longer this time. And in that pause I heard everything I needed to hear. "Nobody," she said. "But I left the back door open like Ryan said to, so I could get into the backyard if I needed air." Ryan wasn't there either. Ryan had gone on the vacation. The back door being left unlocked was apparently the family's solution to the possibility that an 8-year-old girl with asthma might need air in the middle of the night while she was alone in a locked house for a week and a half. I asked her what she had eaten that day. She said she had a peanut butter sandwich for breakfast and some crackers. The kitchen had food in it, she said, but the pantry had a combination lock on it. She didn't know the code, and the refrigerator had a chain threaded through the handles with a padlock on it. There was bread on the counter and peanut butter and a case of water bottles. That was what they had left for her. I asked her how long the bread had been there. "Since Saturday," she said. "It was Tuesday. I told her I was coming. I told her to lock her bedroom door from the inside, to keep her window cracked for air, and to call 911 if she felt her chest getting tight before I got there. I asked her if she knew how to call 911. She said yes. I told her she was doing great. I told her I would be there by morning. I got off the phone and I sat on the edge of my bed for about 45 seconds. That was all the time I allowed myself. Then I went to my filing cabinet. Kevin had mentioned the vacation roughly 3 weeks before. A cruise, Royal Caribbean, out of Port Canaveral. He said it was a family thing, a chance for the 4 of them to reconnect. I had thought it was a good idea. I had said so. He had not mentioned that the 4 of them was actually the 3 of them, and that Lily would be staying home. I found his email. He'd forwarded me the itinerary last fall when they were still in the planning stages, asking if I wanted to join and split a cabin cost. I had declined knee surgery recovery, but I still had the email. 7-night Western Caribbean cruise. Departs Port Canaveral Saturday. Returns the following Saturday. 2 stops, Nassau, Bahamas, then Cozumel, Mexico. Cabin numbers, reservation number, shit name. I had everything. It was 11:47 p.m. The cruise had been at sea since Saturday. Today was Tuesday. I packed a bag in 11 minutes. I know because I looked at the clock when I started and when I locked my front door. I'm not a man who moves slowly when there is a problem to solve. The drive to Charlotte took 3 hours and 20 minutes at that time of night. I got to Kevin's house at 3 in the morning. I knocked softly and called through the door. I heard her footsteps before she even got to the door. She was already awake, listening for me. When she opened the door, she was wearing her pajamas with the little cartoon foxes on them. She looked up at me with her big dark eyes and she said, "You came fast, Grandpa." I said, "Of course I did." I walked through the house. I saw the chain on the refrigerator. I photographed it. I photographed the pantry with the combination lock. I photographed the counter with the bread and the peanut butter and the 2 remaining water bottles. I photographed the calendar on the wall where Sandra had written Kevin/Ryan, Port Canaveral, Scras, in green marker for the entire weeks, in green marker for the entire week. Lily's name was not on the calendar. I found her inhaler in the medicine cabinet in the hall bathroom, not in her room, not somewhere she could access easily. In the cabinet behind the mirror in the hall bathroom, pushed behind a row of cold medicine bottles. Whether that was careless or deliberate, I still don't know. I'm not sure which answer would be worse. I gave her the inhaler and told her to keep it in her pajama pocket. She put it there immediately, no questions asked. That's what I mean about her learning to take up as little space as possible. She didn't ask why she needed to carry it. She just did what she was told by someone who seemed to know what they were doing. I sat with her until she fell asleep. Then I went to the kitchen, made a pot of coffee, and started making calls. My first call was to a friend from my IRS days who became a family law attorney in Greensboro. It was 4 in the morning. He picked up on the 3rd ring because he knows I don't call at 4 in the morning unless it is serious. I told him what I had found. He was quiet for a moment and then he said, "Take more photographs. Don't touch the locks. Is she physically okay?" I said she appeared to be. He said, "Good. You need to file for emergency temporary guardianship. I'll have paperwork started by 9 a.m. Do not let your son know you're there yet." My second call was to a non-emergency CPS intake line from Mecklenburg County. I reported what I had found. They told me a caseworker would conduct a welfare check within 24 hours. I said a welfare check might not be sufficient given the circumstances, and I described the locked refrigerator and the medication situation. They escalated it and said a supervisor would contact me within 2 hours. The supervisor contacted me in 90 minutes. She was at the house by 7 a.m. She walked through the rooms. She photographed what I had photographed. She spoke with Lily for 40 minutes, alone, in Lily's bedroom, while I sat on the front steps drinking cold coffee. When she came out, she looked at me and she said, "You did the right thing calling us." I said, "I know." While all of this was happening, I had not contacted Kevin. I had considered it. My instinct, the instinct of a father, was to call him immediately and demand an explanation. But the attorney had been clear. Do not alert him. If Kevin knew I was there, he might attempt to return and present a version of events before the record was established. He might try to characterize what happened in ways that made it harder to document the truth. So I waited. I waited through the morning. I waited through lunch, which I made for Lily. Grilled cheese and tomato soup from a can. I found in the unlocked cabinet above the stove. She ate the whole bowl and then looked at the empty bowl and then looked at me. I asked if she wanted more. She said, "Am I allowed?" I had to excuse myself for a moment. I went to the back porch and stood outside for a minute. Just a minute. Then I went back in and made her another bowl. The cruise ship was at sea, midway between Nassau and its return to Port Canaveral. I had the ship's name. I had the cruise line's guest services number. I called and explained that I was attempting to reach a passenger regarding a family emergency involving a minor child. They put me on hold. When they came back, they said they could pass a message to the passengers cabin. I told them what to put in the message. I told them to inform the passenger that his daughter was alone at home and that local authorities and his father were present at the address. I told them to include my phone number. Kevin called me 11 minutes later. I let him talk for about 30 seconds. He started explaining. He started talking about how Lily needed routine and did better at home, and how they had arranged for a neighbor to check on her, a neighbor I had found no evidence of, a neighbor whose name he couldn't produce when I asked him directly. Then I told him what I had photographed. Then I told him about the CPS caseworker who was currently filing her report. Then I told him about the attorney. He stopped talking. This take Doc on the phone. She said that I was overreacting. She said that Lily was more capable than I realized. She said that the locks were because Lily had a habit of getting into things. She said a lot of things that I listened to carefully and did not respond to. When she finished, I said, "How much food was in the refrigerator, Sandra?" She didn't answer. I said, "Because you locked a chain through the handles of a refrigerator full of food and left an 8-year-old with half a loaf of bread and peanut butter for 11 days. I need you to explain to me how that's not what it looks like." She said the food in the refrigerator was for when they returned. She said they didn't want it to spoil. I said, "You left a child at home and you were worried about the food." She hung up. Kevin called back. He was quieter. He asked what he needed to do. I said he needed to get himself back to Port Canaveral as fast as the ship would allow and speak with the attorney I had retained, who would be serving him with emergency temporary guardianship documents the moment he stepped off that ship. I told him the CPS report was already filed and that his cooperation from this point forward was the only thing he could control. He said, "You can't just take her." I said, "I didn't take her. I found her." The ship docked in Port Canaveral on Saturday morning. Kevin and Sandra came down the gangway looking like they had not slept in 3 days. They had not. Ryan was with them, and he looked confused and scared. And when he saw me standing there with the attorney, he started to cry. I felt for the boy. None of this was his fault. The attorney served Kevin the temporary guardianship papers. Kevin read them and looked up at me, and I could see that he was trying to find something to say and couldn't find it. Sandra did not look at me at all. CPS had already been to the house for a second visit. The caseworker had written up a formal neglect report. The chain on the refrigerator had been photographed as evidence. The medication situation had been documented. The neighbor arrangement Kevin had referenced had been investigated and found to not exist in any documented form. No written agreement, no phone contact, no neighbor who could confirm being asked to check on Lily. The family law hearing was 6 weeks later. Kevin and Sandra hired an attorney. Their attorney argued that the arrangement had been a lapse in judgment, not neglect, that they had believed Lily was capable of managing independently for short periods. Their attorney used the word independent 4 times. The judge looked at the photographs of the chain on the refrigerator. She looked at the documentation of the inhaler's location. She read the CPS report. She read the statement from the caseworker. She read Lily's own statement, which the caseworker had helped her prepare. The judge did not use the word independent. The judge used the words endangered and neglected and below any reasonable standard of care. Temporary guardianship became permanent. Kevin has supervised visitation every other weekend, if he chooses to use it. He has used it twice in 6 months. Sandra has not come to any of the visits. Ryan calls me on Sunday afternoons. He is a good kid. He asks about Lily. He told me once that he didn't know she was going to be left home. I believe him. He was 9 years old. He was told his sister was staying home. What was he supposed to do? Lily has been living with me in Savannah for 5 months now. She has her own room, which she has gradually started filling up with things: a stuffed rabbit, a poster of horses, a small cactus on the windowsill that she waters very seriously every 3 days. She still waits for everyone to take food at the table before she reaches for anything. We're working on that. It takes time. Last week she opened the refrigerator by herself. Our refrigerator, the normal one with no locks on it, and she stood there looking at it for a moment. Then she turned to me and said, "Grandpa, we're out of orange juice." I said, "I'll put it on the list." She got herself a glass of water and went back to her book like it was the most normal thing in the world. And I stood there in the kitchen and thought, that's what normal looks like. That right there. That is what I drove 3.5 hours in the middle of the night for. I don't regret a single thing I did. Not the calls, not the attorney fees, not the estrangement from my son that has followed. I have left a door open for Kevin. I have told him directly that if he is willing to do the work, therapy, accountability, real reflection on what happened and why, that door remains open. He has not walked through it yet. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. That is his choice to make. But Lily didn't get to make choices. She was 8 years old and someone put a padlock on her food and drove away for 11 days and left her in a house by herself. She gets to make choices now. That is what matters. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty, if I feel like I went too far, if I feel like I should have called Kevin first, talked it through, given him a chance to explain before I called an attorney and a caseworker and drove through the night to his front door. I don't, and I've sat with that question long enough to know it's not denial. Here's what I understand about consequences. After 64 years of living, they are not punishments handed down from somewhere above. They are simply the other end of choices. Kevin and Sandra made a choice. They chose a cruise over a child who had already spent 2 years being left by people who were supposed to keep her. They chose a padlock over a kid with asthma who didn't know where her inhaler was. They chose Ryan's vacation over Lily's basic safety. Those choices had a natural end, and I did not create that end. I only refused to look away from it. What I keep coming back to is not the anger. The anger faded faster than I expected, but the intelligence of it, or the lack of it. I was a forensic accountant. I spent my career watching people make decisions they thought were clever, decisions they had rationalized so thoroughly that they genuinely believed no one would ever look closely enough to see what was underneath. And what I learned over 23 years is that the rationalization is always the tell. Sandra told me the food in the refrigerator was for when they returned. She had a ready answer. She had thought about it. She had decided that answer was sufficient. That's not a mistake. That's a system, and systems like that don't start with a cruise. I think about Lily asking me if she was allowed to have a second bowl of soup, 8 years old, asking permission to eat in a kitchen that had food in it, in a house that was supposed to be her home. That question is the entire story. Everything you need to know about what her life was before is in that one question. A child who is being loved, consistently and without conditions, does not ask if she is allowed to be hungry. The work now is not legal. The courts did what courts do. The work now is slower and less dramatic and more important. It is being in the kitchen when she gets home from school. It is remembering that she prefers her grilled cheese with the crusts cut off. It is not making a big deal out of the cactus she waters every 3 days, just letting her have the thing she decided to care for without anybody commenting on it. It is letting her be ordinary. Ordinary is what she was denied. Ordinary is what she was denied. Ordinary is what I can give her. I am not a perfect man. I was not always a perfect father. Kevin did not become who he became in a vacuum, and I have spent enough nights thinking about my own role in that to know it's complicated. But I also know that at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday in March, a little girl in cartoon fox pajamas picked up a phone and called me. Not her parents, who were on a ship. Not a neighbor. Not 911. Me. She called me because she believed I would come. That belief was the only thing I had to live up to, and I did. The cactus on her windowsill has a new sprout on it. She showed me this morning, very seriously, like it was important news. It is important news. That's what I've learned from all of this. The new sprout on the cactus is the whole point. Everything else, the attorney fees, the court dates, the estrangement, the long drive in the dark, all of it was just the cost of getting to be in the room when she shows you the new sprout. It was worth it. It will always have been worth it.